This is LSAT PrepTest 138, Section 1, Passage 3. It's about a contradiction baked into economics since 1776. The pin factory versus the invisible hand. Medium difficulty passage. The ideas here are pretty straightforward. The trap is misreading the author's tone towards economists. Now, this is a social science passage. It's telling a story about why one economic idea got buried for 200 years. The main point is that increasing returns were always real, always obvious, but economists couldn't deal with them because the math didn't exist yet. Once the math caught up, the idea became respectable. Now, the most important paragraph is paragraph 4. That's where the author reveals what they actually think about this whole saga. Everything before it is set up. Paragraph 4 is the payoff. Now, paragraph 1 lays out two ideas from Adam Smith. First, the pin factory. A bigger factory means workers specialize and output per person goes up. Second, the invisible hand. Self-interest, left alone, guides everyone toward the common good. Businesses sell what people want at fair prices, not out of kindness, but because competition forces them to. You want to read this at a steady pace. Your only job here is to keep these two ideas separate in your head. Pin factory, scale helps. Invisible hand, competition works. Paragraph 2 is where those two ideas collide. And this is the paragraph students tend to skim too fast. If a firm keeps getting more efficient as it grows, it's going to crush its competitors. A few huge firms take over, but the invisible hand requires lots of competitors where nobody gets to dominate. And so these two different ideas cancel each other out. The passage says they are opposed to each other. The author really means that. If increasing returns are real, then free markets don't self-correct the way Smith had hoped. You want to slow down here. You've got to feel the weight of this contradiction. Paragraph 3, you can pick up speed. It's explaining a choice economists made. For almost 2 centuries, they went with diminishing returns. The pin factory got dropped. Now here's what matters. Why? The author says it was not ideology. It was the line of least mathematical resistance. And that phrase is doing a lot of work. Diminishing returns were easy to model with numbers and equations. Increasing returns were not. So economists didn't reject the pin factory because they thought it was wrong. They shelved it because they couldn't make it rigorous. You want to hold on to that distinction. Now, paragraph 4, you want to slow way down. This is the heart of the passage. Economists kept trying to bring increasing returns back, but they repeatedly failed. The author even gives you a concrete example. Railroads obviously had increasing returns and everybody knew it, but the math still would not cooperate. The author uses the phrase underground river to describe how this idea stayed alive beneath the surface of mainstream economics. It kept flowing, but nobody could bring it up into the daylight. Then, in the late 1970s, someone finally figured out the formalism, and that's when the pin factory became respectable. Now notice how the author ends the passage. The last sentence says economists finally found ways to describe it to make it respectable. So the word respectable is loaded. The author isn't saying the idea became true, it was always true. It became acceptable because it looked like real economics. Now the key move here, the pin factory was not rejected on its merits, it was rejected because the tools to express it did not exist. Now every hard question here will test whether you caught that. The author's stance is sympathetic, both to the pin factory idea and to the economists who sidelined it. And this is where students get burned. The author does not blame economists. The passage frames their choice as being practical, not stubborn. They wanted rigor, but the math wasn't there, and so they worked with what they had. Now, if you pick an answer that says the author is hostile or critical toward mainstream economists, that's wrong. The tone is closer to understandable delay than inexcusable failure. But if you pick an answer that says the author is indifferent, that's also wrong. There is a clear lean toward the pin factory throughout. Now, before you hit the questions, you want to check yourself on 3 things. First, what is the actual reason increasing returns got sidelined? Not economists disagreed with it, but what specifically held them back? Second, what changed in the late 1970s? And third, does the author think economists were wrong to go with diminishing returns, or does the author think they just didn't have a choice?